we're here to speak on behalf of all Canadians that have issues with this carbon tax. Canadians rose on April 1st as a result of the implementation of the carbon tax. The protests are ongoing throughout this country as we speak right now. As a concerned Canadian, I am seeing in the protests is very concerning and for many reasons. Firstly, I would like to implore that all parties, protesters, law enforcement, and Canadians who may feel inconvenienced by this protest, to exercise the utmost patience and understanding. I would also ask that everyone engage in a respectful dialogue to address any issues that might arise during this protest, while ensuring that they are safe, lawful, and peaceful, and that they respect all aspects of Canadians' rights to protest. If everyone involved in any aspect could be counted upon open, honest, and respectful dialogue, this would beget the trust amongst all to have a successful protest. Within the parameters of protesters' rights to protest and law enforcement mandates, thus keeping protests safe, peaceful, and lawful. Calm heads must prevail to have a safe, peaceful, and lawful protest. Protesters are getting confused by what appears to be continually changing rules from law enforcement in some locations. I have witnessed videos where protesters and law enforcement officers are in discussion and trying to work it out. However, I think that we all agree on how frustrations can arise when the rules of engagements are unclear. This is not what is needed, nor is it beneficial. Changing the rules or threatening of arrest does not work in anyone's favor. Given this, we also petition the federal courts to immediate action on establishing a consistent ground rules for safe, peaceful, and lawful protests, while balancing the goals of all parties involved. As a concerned Canadian citizen, we ensure that success for all protesters have the democratic right to a safe and legal and peaceful manner. Law enforcement has the mandate to ensure that this is also the case. However, the rule of what is and what is not legal should not change during the course of a protest. Misunderstanding, miscommunication, and misinterpretation of laws and rights can lead to infringements on right or wrong from either law enforcement and or protesters' perspective. Some communication rule changes can be interpreted as an intimidation. A desired goal of our presentation today highlights these issues and proactive activities to take place rather than reactive, potentially knee-jerk reaction that could result in possible charges. Tying up precious court time and immeasurable resources on so many fronts. Having rules of engagement established by the federal court on a priority basis for a safe, peaceful, and lawful protests for Canadians to advocate for themselves will significantly accomplishments for the democracy of this wonderful country of ours. Lastly, we want to encourage the government to an open up dialogue with the citizens of this country, of Canada, and the businesses of Canada to address the issues of the carbon tax implementation on Canadian citizens and their businesses across this beautiful country. We cannot tax the middle class into poverty This tax will be the straw that breaks the Canadians' back. In a true democratic society, people have the right to vote on what matters that impact every aspect of their lives and their livelihood. Is it time for a referendum? Our elected officials profess democracy. What can be more democratic than a referendum on this issue? Give Canadians a voice. Let them decide for themselves. If the federal government fails to vote on a referendum, should the provinces conduct their own referendum and poll their people on their desire to opt in or out of the carbon tax? Canadians deserve a voice on this issue. It's time to let Canadians decide. Thank you.
Certainement. So my name is Robert Dorion.
Short version.
Short version in English. Yes. My name is Robert Dorion, and you probably don't know me, and for good reasons. I'm not a politician. I'm not an organizer of any sorts. I'm just, to put it simple, a Canadian, a proud Canadian. I stand here today at the risk of being humiliated and fumbling in a press conference, which I've never done before, because I think it's important to act when something is wrong in our country. I believe we live in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I truly believe that. I don't want to see this country go sideways like it's going right now. I want this country to be proud. I want my children to be proud, and I want it to be a good place like it's always been. Presently, we're having issues, and we've been having issues for the last few years. The last straw was this carbon tax that Mr. Trudeau imposed on April 1st. Now, some people will say Quebec is not affected. I am from Quebec. That's not true. We've been paying an environmental tax. The goods that we're buying and purchasing in Quebec and any other province are all going to be affected by this tax hike. We've already seen the impact on the price of food, the price of heating, and all kinds of other testing right now. They're doing it in a very legal and respectful way. They're not blocking roads. They're not causing any trouble. We are really good Canadians trying to get a message across, and that is the right thing to do in a democracy. Justin Trudeau is always proud to stand up on a podium and say how he is a great defender of democracy across the world, ready to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in Ukraine and other countries to secure democracy. Why won't he apply those same rules in our country? When 386,000 Canadians signed the largest petition ever in Canada, asking him to resign or to call elections, he brushed it off. In my opinion, that's not democracy. Did not even address the question. I think that we are at a crossroad right now. Canadians are standing up. We're doing it in a peaceful manner. We are using the tools at our disposition, like we're doing right now, expressing ourselves, expressing our concerns, going out of our way to do press conferences, which we never do. Anybody looking at this, watching this, should realize that this is not normal. This whole scenario is not normal. You don't see regular Canadians standing up, doing a press conference, trying to get the government to listen. And there's a reason for that. We have hit a low point. We can't take it anymore. And I'm talking for a lot of Canadians. I can't speak for all of them, but a lot of them. This needs to be addressed. Our Prime Minister, who is so keen on democracy, should do the basic thing in a democracy and listen to his people. So on that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. I hope this message will get across. Keep your heads up and be proud. Thank you.
We'll now take questions. No questions here? We'll now take questions from Zoom. Okay, 1 second. Mr. Lee, one question, one follow-up.
Hi, this is Shaoli Lee from City News. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Just first point of clarification, Monsieur Dorion, could I actually just ask you to spell your name, please? We're going to
Yeah, my name is Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T. Last name is D-O-R-I-O-N.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And earlier you talked about, or rather your colleague talked about good open dialogue or referendum. What would you like to see going forward? What would be a good first step from the federal government in terms of indicating that they're actually listening to you on this?
I believe that there are two options that were presented. One is an election, because an election, in my opinion, in our opinion, is a democratic way to have a positive or a concrete answer to the question of that carbon tax. Mr. Trudeau says that and is confident that the Canadians stand by his carbon tax. What better way than an election in a democracy to get a concrete answer to this? Because what we're seeing is opposite of that. If he's not willing to have an election for whatever reason, then what my colleague Karl suggested was a referendum. And that is also a democratic avenue to get a clear response from the Canadian citizens as to whether or not they want this tax. So I think at this point, seeing the impact that it has on the quality of life of Canadians, I think this is a very reasonable suggestion.
Thank you. Like, is there a proposal that you feel like would be acceptable that would penalize large corporate polluters, for example, so long as it doesn't impact prices or affordability for ordinary Canadians?
Yeah, Karl.
As an industrialist, as a millwright, I would say it's pretty simple. It's make your environmental policies, like we were, more stringent, and work with the industries into working into a more clean environment policy to actually do this. You do not need to tax everybody or tax basically products to the point that everything gets expensive and anybody can't afford it. As another point that I would see that would happen as well as with this carbon tax is it's going to make all our exports way more expensive, which is going to take us away from take our leading edge in the entire world for exports, because all our products will be more expensive to export to other countries due to the fact that the carbon tax is going to implemented, and nowhere else in the world is the carbon tax implemented. Mm-hmm. So the companies will move down south most likely because there's no carbon tax, and we'll lose jobs as well as in that manner as well. So I honestly think environmental policies is probably the way to go. It was worked before. We are the most environmentally clean country in this world, one of the most, and there's no doubt about it. We are carbon positive. We are actually very, 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 very well off, and we are very, very environmentally aware of our industries. So I honestly think that there's a lot easier ways to fix the issue than tax the people and tax the product that this country is making, to the point that exports are going to lose. Probably lose part of the GDP, the 33% or 34% of the GDP export that's leaving this country. I don't know how much it's going to affect it, how deep it's going to go, but if I was a businessman, I'd go where there's no carbon tax. I'd move my company out down south. That's the honest truth.